Welcome back to the podcast. We are recording this from Columbus, Ohio, and I have to say, the heavy gray clouds outside feel strangely appropriate for our conversation today.
They really do, Alex. It is one of those classic Midwestern afternoons where everyone is just rushing from their car to their office, trying to outrun the cold.
And that rushing is exactly what I want to talk about. Not the physical rushing, but the psychological rushing. The pressure we carry because of specific phrases society taught us.
Yes, sentences that sound like harmless advice, but are actually deeply exhausting rules.
Exactly. Let us start with one of the most common lies. The idea that your value as a person depends entirely on your output. If you are not productive, you are failing.
That is so deeply ingrained, especially here. People have this intense guilt if they sit on the couch for 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
I understand that completely. Your mind immediately whispers that you should be doing laundry, answering emails, or improving yourself somehow.
Right. We treat rest as a reward that must be earned through exhaustion, rather than a basic human requirement.
And the danger there is that you become a machine that never feels finished. You measure your human worth by a checklist.
And physiologically, your body keeps track of that. There's something in psychology called allostatic load, which refers to the wear and tear on your body from chronic stress.
Wait, really? So this invisible guilt actually causes physical damage over time?
Yes, when you deny yourself rest, your cortisol levels remain elevated. You might think you are simply being a hard worker, but your heart and immune system are constantly acting like they are under attack.
That makes total sense. We glorify the exhaustion, but we do not talk about the heart attacks or the autoimmune diseases that follow decades of that mindset.
Exactly. And that ties into another major lie we tell people from a very young age. The lie that showing emotion makes you weak.
The classic boys do not cry mentality.
Yes, it usually starts there. But the message evolves into adulthood as hide what you feel to remain professional.
I have seen that so often in corporate environments. People nod, they smile, they say everything is fine, but inside, they are navigating a complete disaster.
And we call that bottling up your emotions. When you trap your feelings inside instead of processing them, you start to distrust your own internal world.
That is a powerful way to put it. Distrusting your internal world. Because if you constantly pretend you are not sad when you are, or not angry when you are, you lose touch with your own reality.
Precisely. And later in life, people wonder why they feel disconnected from their partners or their children. It is because they spent 40 years building a wall to look strong.
It is tragic, honestly. The armor you build to protect yourself eventually becomes the cage that isolates you.
That is a beautiful way to phrase it, and it leads us to the next massive piece of conditioning, the illusion of the milestone.
The belief that happiness is waiting for you just across the next finish line.
Right. I will be happy when I get the promotion. I will be happy when my mortgage is paid off. I will be happy when I find a spouse.
I fell into that trap for a decade. I convinced myself that the anxiety I felt every night was just the cost of admission to a better future.
That is so common. There is a term for this, the arrival fallacy. It was coined by Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar.
The arrival fallacy. Tell me more about how that works in the brain.
It is the illusion that once we reach a goal, we will reach enduring happiness. But the brain does not work that way. The dopamine hit from achieving a goal fades very quickly.
So you spend 5 years working toward a specific job, you finally get it, and 2 weeks later, you are sitting at your desk feeling completely normal, or even empty.
Exactly, because you delayed your joy for 5 years. You treated the present moment as a waiting room, assuming the real life was going to begin later.
Which brings us to the biggest, most dangerous lie of all. The idea that life starts later.
That one breaks my heart. We hear it so often in the context of retirement. I am going to work myself to the bone now so I can travel when I am 65.
And I want to be clear here. Planning for the future is responsible. Having savings is necessary. But sacrificing the best years of your physical health on a gamble is tragic.
It is a massive gamble. because tomorrow is not promised to anyone. You might wait until you are 65 to take that trip, only to find your knees can no longer handle the walking.
Or worse, you realize you have forgotten how to relax. You have spent 4 decades rushing, and now that you have the time, your nervous system is permanently stuck in high gear.
Yes. People literally lose the capacity to enjoy slow moments. The quiet becomes terrifying to them because it leaves them alone with their thoughts.
So how do we unlearn these lies? We live in a society that constantly reinforces them. How do you step off that treadmill?
The first step is simply noticing the language you use internally. Notice when you say, I have to, instead of, I choose to. Notice when you feel guilty for resting.
Awareness. It sounds basic, but it is incredibly difficult when you have been running on autopilot for most of your adult life.
It is very difficult. But once you notice the lie, it loses a little bit of its power. You start realizing that you do not have to live up to the invisible expectations.
Which leads to another crucial point, the pressure to live life on time. Society loves deadlines.
Oh, absolutely. You must have your career figured out by 30. You must own property by 35. It creates chronic anxiety.
And if you log on to social media, you are constantly bombarded with people who seem to be meeting all those deadlines perfectly.
What you are seeing is people keeping up appearances. They put on a brave face online. They curate the successes and completely hide the confusion.
That is so true. Everyone assumes everyone else has a map, while secretly we are all just driving around trying to figure out where we are going.
That is a perfect analogy. And letting go of that imaginary timeline is one of the most liberating things a person can do for their mental health.
I think this conversation is going to resonate deeply with people. It requires real vulnerability to admit that we have been following rules that do not serve us.
It does. But that vulnerability is the foundation of actually living, rather than just surviving your schedule.
Sarah, thank you so much for bringing such clarity to this. For anyone listening, remember, your life is not starting later. It is happening right now, whether the weather outside is sunny or completely gray.
Thank you for having me, Alex. It was a pleasure.